The EU has often been accused of stubbornness when it comes to Brexit, and according to former UKIP MP Douglas Carswell, it is because Eurocrats have been listening to Remainers like former Prime Minister Tony Blair. Talks over a post-Brexit trade deal between the UK and EU have restarted this week. A decision must be made before the next key summit in June as to whether the existing negotiating deadline of December 31, 2020, should be extended. The government has insisted it will not agree to any extension, even if the EU favours it. During the transition period, the UK must continue to abide by EU rules. Should it be extended, the country would be expected to make a lump sum contribution to the EU budget. The latest round of talks will run over the course of this week and conclude on Friday, with the next round to begin on June 1. The government announced that limited progress had been made after the previous round of negotiations in April, while chief EU negotiator Michel Barnier described the talks as disappointing. There remain negotiating flashpoints on the issues of fisheries, competition law, legal cooperation, and how the trade deal would effectively be policed. The UK is thought to be keen to agree a core trade deal first, with separate deals encompassing energy and aerospace. However, the EU favours an all-encompassing deal and prefers to tie off agreements on fishing quotas and competition rules within that deal first. As tensions are set to rise, in an exclusive interview with Express.co.uk, former UKIP MP Douglas Carswell suggested that it is Tony Blair's fault if the bloc is so stubborn with Britain. The prominent Brexiteer argued that Eurocrats do not understand Brexit because they have been listening to Remainers like Mr. Blair. He said, "The government's position is absolutely right, we are not going to make any agreements that bind UK public policy to the EU. It is up to the EU how they want to respond to that. If they want to respond to that by imposing tariffs, it's on them." The EU's position shows Michel Barnier doesn't even understand what Brexit means. When asked why Brussels continues to keep its hardline stance, Mr. Carswell said, "I think fundamentally it is because Eurocrats have been listening to the wrong people in Britain, like Tony Blair. If you are a foreign policy official in Berlin or a Eurocrat in Brussels, it is very tempting to listen to Blair. And if you talk to those sort of people you misunderstand." However, Mr. Carswell argued that this behaviour has actually been the greatest Brexit ally in the last 2 decades. He explained, "I have noticed the same pattern repeating itself on the EU side. They constantly failed to make the concessions that they ought to have made in a timely manner, and as a result they encourage an ever more distant relationship. They were intransigent on the Irish backstop. They administered to Theresa May the equivalent of a punishment beating. What did that do? It ensured a Brexit majority, a Boris Johnson government with a massive House of Commons majority and a clear mandate for complete separation. They failed to give David Cameron when he was negotiating any credible concession that might have allowed him to convince the public to vote Remain in the referendum." He added, "As a Eurosceptic I have always regarded this intransigence as an ally. If they had the sense to give more to David Cameron before the referendum, if they had the sense to give more to Theresa May after the referendum, we wouldn't be heading for the complete departure we are now heading towards."